Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another achievement hunt here. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. Thanks for joining me here playing Psychonauts 2. We're going to get all the achievements, but first, couple little housekeeping notes. Number one, Psychonauts is a game about some kind of heavy topics, a lot of dealing with emotional baggage and things like that, kind of jokes throughout the game about it, but it's a little bit heavy. The game itself puts a little warning the first time you launch the game about the kind of nature of the topics that they're discussing, so just wanted to put a warning in here as well since the game did it itself. Thing number two, this is a sequel. Psychonauts 2 is a sequel, funny enough. Psychonauts 2. So, because this is a sequel, we're going to need to do some couching here. I've written up a brief little description of what happened in Psychonauts 1, and it's going to sound a lot like I'm reading from a script, because I am. I had to write it out for myself because it's been a couple of years since I played it. I played Psychonauts 1 in, I believe, 2021, and I really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite games that I played that year. And it was a great time. So, I was very excited to check out Psychonauts 2 and get all the achievements. So, the plot of Psychonauts 1. Psychonauts 1 was released in 2005 by Double Fine Productions, the same studio that made Psychonauts 2. In Psychonauts 1 and 2, you're playing as Rasputin, or Raz Aquato. Raz is a 10-year-old psychic who was given a poster at his family's circus act to come join the Psychonauts at Whispering Rock Psychic Summer Camp. Now, I know what you're thinking. What the heck is a Psychonaut? Well, Psychonauts are the secret agents of the world who use their abilities to enter people's minds, among other things, to prevent crime and wrongdoing from happening in the world. So, at this summer camp, there is an extremely memorable cast of characters, such as the counselors, Sasha Nine and Mia Vodello, and Coach Oleander. The janitor Ford Kroller and Lily Zanato, Raz's girlfriend, are also key characters. There are a lot of other characters as well, and a lot of them are related to characters in Psychonauts 2, but they don't really matter as much for our plot that we're going to be covering here. Throughout Psychonauts 1, Raz uncovers a plot that Coach Oleander is removing campers' brains and plotting to take over the world, but Raz goes inside his mind and sorts everything out, and he's in the second game and he's all good now. No problems there. The major subplot of the game is that Raz has to sneak away from his family to the summer camp because his father hates all psychics because a psychic put a curse on their family to ensure that all Aquatos die in water, ironically. So this is an extremely plot-relevant point for Psychonauts 2, so it's important that you know that. Now this is also a problem because Raz's father himself is a psychic, as well as a few of Raz's siblings, so that kind of plays into the family dynamic there. So at the end of the Psychonauts 1, after we finished all of that plot and returned everyone's brains, the agents get a special notification that the head of the Psychonauts and Lily's father, Truman Zanato, has been kidnapped and the gang needs to go on a rescue mission. This mission got released as a playable game called Psychonauts in the Rhombus of Ruin in 2018, but I didn't play that because it's a VR exclusive, and come on, who played that? So, the last important thing to know is that canonically, the events of these games are happening over 3 days. Psychonauts 1 was day 1, Rhombus of Ruin was day 2, and now Psychonauts 2, released 16 years after the original, is day 3. I really enjoyed playing this game, and I hope you enjoy watching me collect all of its achievements. So without further ado, let's get into it. Psychonauts 2 jumps right into the action immediately following the VR game that comes between Psychonauts 1 and Psychonauts 2. We've just rescued the grand head of the Psychonauts, Truman Zanato, from the secret base of Dr. Lobato. So we've hatched a grand scheme to get inside of Dr. Lobato's head and try to figure out who he's working for. So the basic idea is to make Dr. Lobato think he's won an award for Employee of the Year, but in order to take the vacation he's won as a prize, he needs to get his boss to sign it. So, the plan is, inside of his mind, he will walk to his boss to get the paperwork signed, and we're going to track him down and follow him through the maze of his mind undetected, but he catches us almost immediately and he takes off running through his mind. This game has a lot of collectibles in it, so immediately we find the first one, Figments, which are little items you can collect in the mind. We also gain access to our first ability, Telekinesis, which we can use to throw items throughout the game. We fall down into the first trap that Dr. Lobato has set for us and get introduced to the first of a couple enemies that this game has. there's not that many, but we start off against the censor here in the office building that the plan was cooked up in. We earn our first achievement, TKO, almost immediately for hitting an enemy with our telekinesis power. Then we find the second mind-based collectible memory vaults, which are used to show kind of some backstory to the person's mind and usually reveal something about who they are as a character. We're not going to show every single collectible we pick up because there's quite a few, but the next kind is emotional baggage, which has a tag and then the actual bag in the mine that you find. You pair those together, and every 5 you go up a rank in the level system. We gain access to our next special psychic ability, Psyblast, and reunite with Agent Sasha 9. And then, because we're in the mind of a dentist, we see some tooth fairies that are just teeth with wings, and I think that was kinda neat. We get introduced to the second enemy, Regret, here. Again, not going to cover all of the enemies, but just pointing out the second one that we see here. We take a little tumble down a hallway here, and it's our introduction to the fact that Raz cannot touch water, as is part of his family's curse to die in water. Here we reunite with Lily and see that there have been a lot of motivational posters posted around Lobato's mind that seem to be used by the person controlling him to kind of brainwash him. We burn the posters down and find a hole in the wall to continue along. I think this is the last one we're going to show specifically, but we make another connection between emotional baggage and the emotional baggage tag, and we move on. We burn another poster down, and this time kind of get an admission of guilt from Lobato, but then we get another version of Lobato kind of talking himself down from that, and it's too late to go back on his regrets now. Around the world and for killing enemies, we collect Psychonauts, which is used as the currency of this game. We reconnect with Agent Mia Vodello, who tells us about another ability from the first game that we have access to, the Levitation Ball. Coming to the end of the Lobato's mind level, we find that he is being manipulated by a mysterious figure hidden in shadows, and he is threatened by a big, mysterious lady who is in a water area controlling a bunch of snakes and seems to be the threat against Lobato. As we're ejected from Lobato's mind, we find that we're actually on the jet with the team coming back from the previous mission with Lobato strapped in. Some quick research from Sasha 9 pulls up the enemy that we saw in Lobato's mind. We find out it's someone called Maligula, the Deluge of Grulovia. She was a big threat to the country called Grulovia back in the day, but she was taken out by the members of the Psychonauts from the past. But if she's been resurrected somehow, that means there must be a mole somewhere within the Psychonauts. We pause on that thought for a minute as we approach Psychonauts HQ, and we get our first vision of it here. We meet the current acting head of the Psychonauts, Agent Hollis Forsyth, who informs us that we're not actually a Psychonaut, but we can have a spot in the intern program to maybe earn our right to have that ability at some point. We get our second achievement, Employee of the Year, and immediately after that we get our first view of Psychonauts HQ, the Mother Lobe. This is the central world that we can move around for different levels. The overworld map also has a lot of different collectibles, first one being Psy Challenge cards. You can buy 9 of them to gain a level at the Automatic. The Automatic is also used as the shop for the game and buying a lot of different items. We get our third and fourth achievements here, Associate Intern and Core Strength for hitting level 2 and for upgrading a core. We get our fifth achievement, Pin Drop, for buying a pin, another item in the game but not super important. We find the next 2 overworld collectibles in the form of Psy Challenge markers and supply chests up next above the cafeteria area. In Psychonauts 1, we had the other campers that made up the majority of our cast, but in this game we have the interns to fill that role. I feel like the interns aren't as involved in this game, but they are always around pretty frequently in the missions that we take on. We get our next psychic ability, Clairvoyance, which isn't the most useful, and we also meet Otto, the owner of the Automatic. We get our next achievement for upgrading one of our psychic abilities, and then we get set up on a long-term side quest, Scavenger Hunt thing. As an intern, you get paired with a more senior member of staff, and we receive Nick John Smith, the man who works in the mailroom. We get our achievement for receiving our first task meeting up with Nick. We pay a visit to Truman Zanato and see that he has a weird case strapped to his arm. Don't know what that's about. And we get our next achievement for visiting my favorite character, Mia Vodello, in her office. When we arrive at the mailroom, it's in complete disarray, and Nick seems to be missing, so we're gonna need to sort this mail out ourselves. While sorting, we find a package addressed to Truman Zanato, and we decide to run that over because it might be really important Psychonaut business. While carrying the package, it bursts open, and who's in there but the man himself, Nick Johnsmith. Nick isn't quite himself, though, unfortunately. It seems he's had his brain removed, a pretty normal thing in Psychonauts, but it just means that he can't really act on his own. Going through his pockets, we find that he had a key to a hotel room at the Lady Lucktopus Casino. We're really excited to go out on that mission, but unfortunately Agent Forsyth doesn't want to let the children go. What she says goes, though, as it's class time and we need to enter her mind to take the lesson. In this lesson, we get our next psychic ability, which allows us to link different ideas and concepts about things within someone's mind to change their opinion on things. The interns have the great idea that we could maybe manipulate this to allow us to go on the mission if we can change Agent Forsyth's mind. We find the next in-mind collectible nugget of wisdom and get our achievement for doing so. We break out of the classroom portion of Forsyth's mind and find that we're in Our Lady of Restraint Hospital. This is a place where Agent Forsyth used to work, but had her genius ideas stolen from her by her mentor, Dr. Potts. We find the final in-mind collectible Half a Mind, which allows us to gain more health. We form a new connection in Forsyth's mind that the only way to make money is by taking a risk, and that gives us our next achievement, Everybody Hates Socks with Sandals. So now all of us interns are allowed to go on the mission with this new rewiring done, and we arrive at Lady Lucktopus. With Agent Forsyth's priorities rewired, she decides to run off to the casino while the mission's still going on and things start to go sideways. So it's on us, of course, to rescue the whole mission. We throw our brain portal over to Agent Forsyth at the table, and we're ready to go. The hospital has been renovated and turned into a casino, and then we get the wonderful payoff that Dr. Potts' first name is Jack, which is very funny to me personally. Agent Forsyth is in the High Rollers Lounge, so we're going to need to get $3 gazillion to get in there. So there's 3 different areas we need to take on. First up is a pinball-like game where we need to get a pill down into the stomach. While we're doing this, our fellow interns get kidnapped, but that's okay. All we care about is the love of the game, and eventually we get our first 1 gazillion coin payout. The next area is a little bit of a spoof on horse racing. We go a little bit deeper into Agent Forsyth's mind and do some new reconnection on needing help, and we're able to use that newfound skill to win the horse race and gain our second gazillion dollars. And finally, we have some classic roulette that we need to beat the odds on. We do some rewiring of the mind, and then we win our third gazillion dollars from some rich parents. So now that we can enter the High Rollers Lounge, it's time for us to face off against the Lucktopus, of course. This is a boss fight, and we get through it pretty quick. This is a fun one, but honestly, most of the boss fights are pretty fun. Then we get our first nice connective moment with Agent Forsyth here, which makes her start to feel like a real character. Kind of felt like she was going to be an antagonist, so that's good. With that level completed, we get our next achievement, and then we have Agent Forsyth rejoin the planning mission and take control, leading the other agents into the casino. With Agent Forsyth back in the lead, we make our way to the hotel room we had the key for, and we find that it's pretty much an absolute mess. But behind a hidden wall, we find that there are some pretty disturbing things stalking members of the Psychonauts. More research on that's needed, but we get our next achievement for completing the casino level. Our next achievement comes from being shown the Brain Tumbler, the area where we can go and revisit past mind levels that we've been to. We revisit Truman Zanato to find that he's actually awake, but we're the only person that he can trust. He informs us that we need to find Ford Cruller, former leader of the Psychonauts and previous janitor, and bring him back. Psychonauts 1 established that you could use bacon to summon Ford Cruller because it was made in 2005 and it was a different time, so we go to the cafeteria and do it. With Ford distracted, he gives us permission to enter his mind. So in Ford's mind, we take a little bit of a step back to the first game at the campsite. We find that what we had always known as the Psychic 6 is actually the Psychic 7, the original founders of the Psychonauts. And after a little bit more prodding around, we find that Ford's mind has been completely split apart after some traumatic event that has occurred to him. So we come back to the real world and find out that his life has been split into 3 different personalities surrounding mail, hair, and shoes, which are the 3 previous jobs that he held at Psychonauts HQ after the events of his mind being shattered. So we'll need to revisit all of those. So with a couple of those main plot points out of the way, we get to move on to some goofy stuff. We head out into our next big area, and find that the entire Aquato family has arrived at Psychonauts HQ, so that'll lead to some hijinks. We take a stop by Otto's research facility, and he gives us an item that lets us find stray thoughts, as well as a camera to capture some of our memories. Another feature of Otto's lab is kind of a matrix-type area that holds a bunch of brains of past Psychonauts, and we just so happen to know somebody that's currently without a brain, so we grab one that isn't labeled, and we take that with us. Quick detour inside the brain, we find that it's pretty confused for the moment. We use the stray thought tuner just outside of Otto's lab and unlock our next achievement. We make our way to the Aquato family campsite and meet up with Raz's parents, siblings, and Nona, and we get a little bit of backstory into what they've been working on while Raz has been away for the last couple days working on his psychic abilities. We also get an achievement for making our way to the campsite. We speak to our mother and get another fetch quest added to the list. We need to find our brother Queepy 6 times throughout the world. He's pretty easy to find, you just need to walk around and follow the music. We get our next achievement for helping our brother put up the Aquato family circus tent. Get another one immediately after for upgrading the amount of Psytanium we can carry, and then another one for fully upgrading one track of our psychic powers. We meet back up with our mentor Nick, and we give him the new brain that we found for him. So we slot this right in with a funnel, and then we need to take a little peek inside his mind. Inside his mind, we find that we're in kind of a psychedelic concert area, which is pretty interesting. Don't know what we're going to be doing here, but we do take note that there seems to be a character in here that sounds a lot like Ford Cruller, interesting enough. The crowd is here for the Feast of the Senses, but Sight has lost his violin, so we need to go into his mind and get that. But first, we need to take a quick stop and get our next ability, Time Bubble. We get our next achievement pretty soon after that for killing our next new enemy, the Panic Attack. We make our way through this level and we find Sight's violin. So with that in hand, it's time for us to meet up with the next group of people, Smell and Taste. They're of course also missing their instruments, so we need to find those. We get another achievement for healing with one of the healing item lollipops in the game, and at the end of the level we find Taste and Smell's instruments for the band. So the Feast of the Senses has 2 more senses missing, touch and hearing, so we find their instruments and they're back in the band as well. So with the band all back together, we get the big reveal that this is the brain of Helmet Fullbear, the missing brain of one member of the Psychic Six, along with the other founding members as the other members of the band. We learn that the reason that the Psychic Six was not the Psychic Seven is because the 7th member was named Lucy, who turned out to be Maligula. She had a psychic break at some point and turned on the rest of the Psychonauts, taking them out. We get some more interpersonal stuff between the Psychonauts, and we have the big reunite within Helmet's mind. And then we get our next achievement for completing that level. So now we're able to enter Mailroom Ford's mind and the first of the 3 levels. The goal here is to make it around the mailroom and into the giant metal head in the center of the map, and remove whatever is causing the fracture. I accidentally get an achievement for hitting a regret with the anvil that it carries. We get another big reveal here. We find out that Agent Ford Cruller and Lucy were in a relationship before Lucy left to the country of Grulovia to help out with the war effort. His letter to call her back was never delivered because Grulovia stopped existing. Then we make our way into the brain, remove the shard, and so we have 2 more levels left in Ford's brain. We also get an achievement for completing the mailroom brain. Another intern gives us a little side quest to go out of our way to take out little kind of PvE areas. We meet up with the next member of the original Psychic Six, Compton Boole, who has put himself in kind of psycho isolation. He gives us the task to go out into the woods and capture a bee in order to help him find his former partner. We find the first of the PvE areas, and we earn the achievement Pyromania for setting 3 enemies on fire with 1 attack. We repair a kind of neat funicular, weird little side thing, and we make our way into the woods where we capture not 1, but 3 bees. In the middle of that, we manage to track down Queepy 6 individual times to earn the achievement Dance Baby Dance. We bring our 3 bees back to Compton, but he freaks out because it's way too many voices at once, so we need to enter his mind to fix him up. Compton's brain level is a cooking show called Ram It Down, where we need to use different appliances throughout the kitchen combined with ingredients from the audience to complete dishes. There's 3 rounds of this where we complete different tasks with different ingredients and different instruments, and then we have Compton explain what we did to help build his confidence. But after 3 rounds of that, the game changes, and Compton will need to cook himself while we are doing a boss fight in the other room, providing him with ingredients. We throw ingredients down a chute, which allows Compton to cook the meal, which we feed to the bosses, which eventually allow us to overstuff them and blow them up. Once we make it through all 3 rounds, Compton gives us his bowling card, and we unlock the achievement Ram It Down. We find and eliminate the 3rd PvE area and return to Gisu to get the achievement for defeating all 3 of those. We also find Lily, and she gives us a little side quest to find some rare fungus that grows behind the waterfall. Next up, it's time to enter Bowling Alley Ford's brain, and we get a cool level here kind of based on a crime thriller mixed with entirely bowling-based items and jokes and things. And then we get the achievement Senior Intern for hitting intern rank 50. We make our way into the 2nd giant Ford head, remove another shard from the brain, and then we get the achievement for completing Bowling Ford's brain area. We find and return Lily's rare fungus for the achievement A Fungus Among Us. Very funny stuff. So at this point, I feel like we've made enough progress that we can start to look back at some of the other brains that we've looked at previously. We get an achievement for re-entering one of the brains that we've looked at previously as well. And we go through and collect up a lot of the things that we missed, the collectibles in a lot of the brains, but some stuff we're not able to do quite yet. Doing this also helps us generate a lot more Psytanium, which allows us to earn one of the rarer achievements, actually, Nest Egg, for filling our Psytanium wallet. With all that money burning a hole in our pocket, we go back and clear out the auto shop for pretty much everything we can buy at this point and earn 3 achievements for buying the upgrades currently available to us. So 2 Ford mines down, it's time for us to enter Barbershop Ford's head, and this time we are climbing our way to the top of a giant barbershop pole. Here we get the reveal that we've kind of been dancing around. Lucy, or Maligula, rose to power in Grulovia. The Psychonauts found out about the travesties she had been committing in Grulovia, so they need to join up as the superhero team they are to take her out once and for all. We remove the final shard from Ford's brain, which means that he is no longer shattered. He is back to how he was before the battle. But he then reveals to us that Maligula wasn't the one that did this to him. So what happened? We unlock 2 achievements for completing all 3 of Ford's mines, and specifically the barbershop level. And Ford takes us a little bit deeper into his mind, into the Tomb of the Sarcophagus. Inside the Tomb of the Sarcophagus, we meet back up with the 3 personas of Ford, and he reveals to us that he captured Lucretia, or Maligula, and hid her away, but he won't tell us where. All he'll tell us is that she's with her family? But we don't have to wait too long for the grand reveal. Here we have the setup that Raz previously believed that his grandmother had made it out of the big dam collapse in Grulovia and come to live with his family, as we met earlier in the game. But Ford is here to inform us that neither grandparent made it out of the disaster, and there isn't really a Nona anymore. Lucretia has been hid among her family, which is Raz's family, or our family, and she didn't really exist. Our father was rescued from an orphanage and had false memories implanted in his head to build kind of a familiar bond with Lucretia, and so she's been with us ever since. So where do we go from here? We need to get the spirit of Maligula under control without revealing to everyone else that she isn't who we've thought for this whole time. If she's attacked by someone, it might bring her back to being the water monster Maligula, but we can't just let her roam free as she keeps going into the woods, because someone's clearly trying to capture that power and reawaken it. So chasing Nona through the woods leads us to the final open world area of the game, Green Needle Gulch. This is where the original Psychonauts base was centered. Ford tells us that the reason Lucretia was able to be manipulated when she went to Grulovia is because of the experiments the Psychonauts were doing in Green Needle Gulch. They attempted to push the mind beyond what it was capable of, and that left them in a weakened state. He also tells us that the water curse that we've been dealing with this whole time was actually something implanted in the mind by him, and it isn't actually real. So to re-enter Nona's mind, we're going to need to use the Astrolathe. Unfortunately, it's covered in bees and thorns, so we're going to need to find somebody to remove those. We also get an achievement for finding the astrolabe in the first place. So at this point we've met 5 of the original 7 Psychonauts, and we have 2 tasks left. So to help out with the bees, we find Cassiopeia, but she's being held prisoner by some other bees. So we go inside of her mind to help overcome the bees, I guess. I don't know what's going on here. First we meet up with writer Cassie, but this version of Cassie can't really help us because she's trapped in a book that is being guarded by librarian Cassie. But librarian Cassie tells us she'll help us out with the bee issue if we can bring back all of the banned books for her. So let's try to do that, I guess. We make our way through the first banned book and meet up with Teacher Cassie. So Teacher Cassie shows us the last of our psychic abilities that we'll get in this game, which allows us to create a flat copy of ourselves to get through areas we can't make it through. So seeing our great teamwork with our copy, Teacher Cassie has the brilliant idea that we need to get each of the banned book versions of Cassie together. So next we do a mission for counterfeiter Cassie, and we get her on our side after the snake cop betrays her with some evidence stuff, and we bring her back to librarian Cassie, who locks us all in the banned book section, but little does she know that we have all 3 versions back together. So now we have us, our counterfeit, and teacher, writer, and counterfeiter Cassie, and we're able to take on the boss fight with the librarian, or dibrarian Cassie, who is the giant beast of this boss fight. So now with writer, counterfeiter, librarian, and teacher Cassies all back together, we can reform the real and fully complete Cassiopeia and get an achievement for doing so. Cassie gets reunited with Agent Boole, who helps her control the bees. Now, I'm not sure why these two stopped seeing each other because they live in the same place, but whatever. They get the bees out of the way, so all that's left now is the vines. We take this moment between missions to go back and clear out all of the previous levels that we haven't finished up until this point. So now there's only one of the original Psychonauts left that we haven't met, Agent Bob Zanotto. You might recognize that last name, related to Lily Ann Truman. So, Bob has been out here living on his own for a really long time, and he's pretty much just been drinking and gardening. So it's going to take a little bit of work to go into his mind and clear some of his past issues up. Inside of Bob's mind, he's been cultivating a garden that just won't grow. He doesn't have any seeds left, so we're going to need to help him out and go out and collect those. But unfortunately, there's a pesky moth that just won't let it go and won't let us take them, so we need to collect 3 seeds while chasing down the moth. This is pretty much the same situation as the other mind, 3 little areas that we need to complete, each of which has one part of our grand item that we need, and we collect all of those and move on. We do get the other half of the memory that we saw earlier with Helmet Full Bear and Bob's wedding, and this might be the best moment of the game. This is just really sweet, this little section here. And just like all the other levels, once we've finally collected all 3 of the seeds, we've set ourselves up for a little more than we bargained for. We're going to need to take out these 3 giant plants and keep Bob safe. We're eventually able to overcome the plant bosses through the power of love of these 2 good gentlemen being so strong even after all this time has passed. So once we finish that fight, we get our next achievement for completing the level Bob's Bottles. Bob casts away all of the bottles that he had in real life, and we get the reuniting of Bob and Nick from the mailroom, but secretly Helmet Full Bear. So with the 2 of them reunited, the vines back away and we have full access to the astrolabe and moving into the final part of this game. First we make a quick stop over at the automatic to get the achievements Kingpin and King of Pop for buying out some more of the items available in the system. Then it's time to blast right past this point of no return they've given us into the end game. So now all the members of the original Psychonauts have been gathered together, brought back into society, and it's time for their nice big reunion right before we all plunge into Nona's mind to try to stop the threat of Maligula that's looming right on the other side of the dam. The first stop in Nona's mind is the Aquato family flea circus, which is very funny and I like a whole lot, especially after the circus level in Psychonauts 1. Raz takes a big jump off the high dive in the flea circus level, and we end up in the second area of Nona's mind, which is a big kind of knitted, quilted, crocheted type area that we need to walk through. On our walk through the quilted area, we get another big reveal from a memory vault where we find that it was actually Nona that dressed up in the mysterious costume and gave Raz the poster for the summer camp from Psychonauts 1. That's some great continuation there. We're really getting into the swing of the end game here, looking at what it means to be a family and what familial relationships are really about. But before long, we make it to the dam that has been holding Maligula back after all of this time. I get another accidental achievement for hitting a judge with his own hammer, and then Ford and Raz prepare to open up the dam for real. Just as we're preparing to face off against Maligula for the last time, Raz gets ejected from the memory and leaves Ford alone. We've been pulled out of Nona's mind by Truman Zanotto. Now, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We get the achievement Tattered Family, but we need to get inside of Truman's mind to see why he just did that. Why is he acting so weird? Inside Truman's mind, there's a lot of really suspicious stuff, but the most suspicious thing is when we break away a statue and find that this mind actually belongs to Nick from the mailroom, and then we get the big reveal that the ultimate big bad of this game has been Nick John Smith, heir to Grulovia. We enter a kind of Disneyland type area where we are riding on a cart through this Tomorrowland type area about Grulovia and learning about all of the horrible things the Psychonauts did to Grulovia, at least in Nick's head they did to Grulovia. We learn that the Grulovian Gazar was able to take control of Maligula and use her power to rule the country with an iron fist. Until the Psychonauts stepped in, Ford Cruller took away Maligula and left the family with nothing, so Nick is out for revenge. We make our way through the ride, finding a lot of the significant moments of Nick's life, including when he infiltrated the Psychonauts as a member of the mailroom. We also get the moment that he was switched with Truman Zanotto, and then we get a little bit of a look at that box again that's strapped to his wrist in the scene with Lobato. We get an achievement for breaking 3 gramophones, and so finally, the whole grand plan has been revealed to us. Nick is here to reawaken Maligula, to retake over Grulovia and I guess the rest of the world in theory, because he's going to be a stronger ruler than his father was, but obviously we're not going to be able to let that happen. Nick manages to trap us, but we're saved by Lily shortly after, and we see even in action figure form, we still have that stupid case attached to Truman's wrist. Hint, hint. We also get an achievement for completing the level Fatherland Follies. Now we're really hitting final battle territory. The whole gang has converged back in Green Needle Gulch. We've got the reveal that Truman Zanotto is not who he said he was, and it's time for Maligula to be released. We meet back up with the Aquato family and find that things have started to become unraveled, but we need their help to be launched into the final fight against Maligula. So this is another pretty standard boss fight, nothing too crazy, but we do get some help from the other interns throughout the fight, which is pretty nice. It's nice to get them involved at least a little bit. We get a couple more really nice scenes about what it really means to be a family, even though they're not related by blood, technically, and Nona gives Raz the power to grow to be the size of Maligula, and finally we push Maligula off a cliff, and she is no more. With Maligula down, we unlock the achievement, Finish What We Started. After all this time, we finally get the reveal that it is Truman's brain inside the box, thank God. And with everyone regrouped at Psychonauts HQ, we get the reveal that all of the interns have graduated and become junior Psychonauts. So with the story finished, we have 9 achievements left to go, and then after that we'll get into some of my thoughts about the game and the series in general. But first, let's clean up these 9 achievements in the post-game real quick. First achievement's a simple one, we just need to take a photo with the camera, and then we get an achievement for collecting all memory vaults, and for tagging all of the emotional baggage found throughout the brains. We finish collecting all of the figments found throughout the brains, and then we turn in our scavenger hunt side quest from the very start of the game for another achievement. We hit rank 100 for another achievement, and then we never actually died during this game, so we have to kill ourselves for another achievement. Next achievement comes from leveling up all of our psychic powers, and then the final achievement comes from talking to Ford and Nona in Green Needle Gulch. So that is 57 out of 57 achievements in Psychonauts 2. So how did we do? It took me 22.5 hours to 100% Psychonauts 2. Now, according to howlongtobeat.com, it's estimated to take about 26.5 hours, so I played a little bit fast, but I talked to everybody. I did all of the endgame stuff. I feel like I pretty much hit everything up, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I just played a little quicker maybe. Maybe playing the first game so recently helped out there. So in general, what are my thoughts on this game? I really enjoyed it. I think Psychonauts is a great series. Really wish they would bring the Rhombus of Ruin to not VR so I could play it. But I really enjoyed Psychonauts 1 and Psychonauts 2. You'll notice in the background here that I'm kind of doing the conversation with Sasha and Agent Modello in the post-game because they're still my favorite characters, and I think that's kind of a little bit of an issue that I have with Psychonauts 2. And it's not even really an issue. I think I prefer Psychonauts 1 because the characters were just a lot more memorable. The whole time playing Psychonauts 2, I was kind of thinking, man, it would be a whole lot easier if I could just do this mission with the people I was already familiar with, and the interns were okay, but I feel like they were just kind of there, and we didn't really build the same relationships with them that we did with the campers in the first game. But, you know, I think that's really just a positive mark for Psychonauts 1, not much of a negative for Psychonauts 2. And, you know, finishing this game, it actually made me kind of sad, because according to Tim Schafer, lead dev for Psychonauts, they don't have plans for Psychonauts 3 at the moment, so it took 20 years for the difference between Psychonauts 1 and Psychonauts 2, so, you know, what are the odds we get a Psychonauts 3? I don't know how well Psychonauts 2 sold, but with all of the references to the previous games, I feel like maybe it did a little bit worse than if it was something completely new, but all these characters, how can you abandon that? I don't know. I would love to see a Psychonauts 3, obviously. They tied up a lot of the end of this game. It wasn't nearly as cliffhangery as the end of the first game where they had the meeting with Truman. But there's a couple threads. It mentions that the Aquatos are invited to continue hanging around Psychonauts HQ, and we saw that Dr. Lobato escaped at the end of the game. I didn't show that, but that's another thing that we could perhaps get into, but I don't know. I really enjoy these games. I think they're fantastic. I think if you're into the third-person, parkour-y, you know, collect-a-thon type games, they're not too difficult. They're pretty fun, about 20 hours a piece, and I think they're just a great time. And so this one was kind of narrative-driven, a lot of story I had to get through, not a whole lot of gameplay being shown, in all honesty, but it was just a lot to handle. So hopefully you enjoyed this one, and hopefully you enjoyed the next one, and you stick around for that. And I hope you'll join me for that next one, whatever that next game may be. Hope to see you for another 100% next week. And I hope everybody's enjoyed. Have a great day. See you!